friends, welcome back. I'm here today with James Wilson. James, if you're not already familiar, has had a really long journey with his health going all the way back to childhood. He had a couple of years with severe chronic illness where he was in a wheelchair and often bedbound, but thankfully he did come back from it. But then in his 20s, only to be hit with this once again. But thankfully, after a lot of research and hard work and perseverance, he has been able to come back and get his health back once again. So, James, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so James has been on the channel before. You might have seen him. You might be aware of his story. I'll link his first interview up here and in the video description if you want to check it out. It is excellent. So we'll do a quick recap of his story, but a lot of what we're going to focus on today is how self-compassion is at the heart of it all and the role of self-compassion with sustainable healing. Now, I know a whole bunch of people are right now, you're like, video off. I'm really sick. I'm facing really serious health challenges, and self-compassion is not something that is going to help me or that I need to be focusing on right now. But if you've at all felt like your nervous system is keeping you stuck and preventing you from getting past your chronic health challenges, I really encourage you to stick around, because James has a lot of insight and experience with this and is going to talk a lot about how we can, befriend our nervous system and use that to help with our healing. So James, for those of you who aren't familiar with your story, can you give us a quick recap? I know that's tough, but of your journey to here.
Yeah, I'll do my very best. So my journey kind of started, or my first experience, I guess, of chronic illness started when I was very young, when I was about 9 years old, and I became very kind of sick, relatively quickly at that age, and ended up, kind of bed and wheelchair bound for a few years. And then it was a kind of a long, gradual process to get back to kind of living a kind of full and healthy life in my kind of teenage years, and back to school and university, and I guess normal kind of young adult life, I suppose. And then, come my mid-20s, a lot of kind of familiar sort of symptoms and feelings returned for me. And, on reflection, as we talked about when we first spoke, a lot of things that probably, came together to contribute to that kind of perfect storm or that situation. And over the last 4 or 5 years, it's kind of been a process of a lot of different exploration, as you kind of talked about, and unpicking and understanding myself better, and trying many different things to feel healthier and happier, and improve my quality of life and my life, I suppose.
It's been some time since you last did your interview here, so I'd love to know, because my perspective of things is always changing and I get new insights about my recovery and just about health in general. So since we last spoke, have you had any insights, or has your perspective on any of this changed?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, really, I find my perspective is kind of constantly, changing in many ways. And I think the thing about this kind of path is you're always learning new things. I guess one thing for me is I've started to try and focus as much as I can on things that I enjoy doing as part of my kind of healing. I think one thing I've started doing a lot since we last spoke is Qigong, actually, as a kind of gentle movement practice. And it's just something I'm really enjoying doing, and isn't necessarily something that a lot of people recommend that you should do, or is kind of popular out there in the healing space, but I'm really enjoying it and finding it beneficial. And so I think as much as possible, I'm actually trying to cut out a lot of noise and just try and focus on actually what am I enjoying doing and what is kind of bringing me a good feeling, and trying to kind of stick with that and practice it. So that would definitely be something. I've actually just started my teacher training for Qigong as well, so I'm hoping it's something that I'll be able to kind of share more in the future. So that's definitely been something. And also just thinking more about the kind of lifestyle or life that I want to live. I did a little bit of living abroad earlier in the year, and I'm going to again, and part of that is just kind of thinking through this experience, like what's the best environment for me as well, like what kind of place do I want to live, what kind of community what I want to live in, what kind of weather, and just kind of figuring that out as I go, I suppose.
I find it can be even challenging to even figure out, this is going to sound crazy, but even what we really do enjoy, because we can get so on autopilot in our life and our routines, and we just don't even think about things this way. And I learned about something recently that I thought was really cool to help you figure this out. And it's called, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called the skip test. So
No,
essentially
I haven't.
what you essentially just do, it's really simple, but blows my mind, the things that can come out of it, is you think about your days or your weeks, your life in general, and the things that you do. And if you could skip to the end of that activity, but still have the same results, still have, no negative impacts, would you still do it? Like if you're at the gym and you could just skip your workout, but the end result would be the same, would you still do that workout?
Yeah.
And then looking at how many aspects of your life you would actually skip. And when I did that for myself, it was an alarming amount, which was a bit depressing at first. But then I also looked at the flip side, like, okay, what are those things I wouldn't skip? Like when I'm thinking about workouts, I would skip strength training. It's a lot of work, but I realized I wouldn't skip my runs. I really enjoy them, and I wouldn't skip tennis. So, how can I expand the space that those things get in my life that I enjoy and make sure they're a priority? And then also the things that I would skip, there's obviously a lot of things that we can't, but how can I make them more enjoyable? How can I have new appreciation for them? How can I make them more fun? So I love your focus on what really makes you happy. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. It's really, that's so simple, isn't it? But it's like really powerful at the same time. And I think that this, healing work can feel a lot like work, and it can feel like a chore. And so I think the more things that you can kind of build in that you actually like doing and that also benefit you, it's makes things feel a lot more easeful at the same time as doing you good, I suppose.
I'm curious as well, because I know that you now, work with people and talk with a lot of people who have gone through similar journeys as us. And have you noticed any trends with personality types or character traits with people who get these types of chronic health illnesses?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And a part of that reflection sort of started with myself and sort of thinking about my own kind of patterns or tendencies and kind of mapping out what they were, a bit of both. And realizing that when I was kind of working this space and sort of interacting with more and more people, I was suddenly like, wow, there's so much crossover and similarity there with a lot of us. And obviously it's difficult to generalize completely, but I would say being a kind of, I describe as like a high achiever of some description would definitely be one of them. And that real, I guess, like determination to like succeed. A lot of people I've interacted with have either been kind of successful in like their workspace or sport or exercise or music or something that they've really kind of, I guess, pushed themselves and driven themselves with. I guess the kind of sense of perfectionism often comes along with some of that as well. And that real desire to want things, right and complete and sorted and ticked off. And, I think we talked a little bit as well about, that idea of applying that to healing, and that kind of finish line of healing sometimes comes into it as well. A lack of kind of self-compassion and being quite hard on ourselves, that kind of harsh internal critic that I think is there for a lot of people, and that feeling that always should be kind of doing better or doing more that kind of drives us. And I think the result of a lot of those kind of tendencies is often that sense of pushing beyond your body's limits and what your body probably needs or wants. And certainly in my experience, that's how I both times ended up with poor health, is pushing beyond what my limit and capacity was and what my body was probably calling for, capable of. And I think a lot of those patterns sit at the heart of that, I suppose.
I talked to a guy recently, I interviewed a guy named Nick. I can link the video here if people want to check it out. But he was over in Sydney, and he's like this big, Aussie guy. And he's, when he was doing his healing, someone told him that self-compassion had to be a big part of it. And he's just like, I'm a blokey bloke. What does self-compassion mean? And, it's just, but so many of us are realizing how hard we've been on ourselves, the high expectations we have on ourselves, the continual state of stress that we keep ourselves in, and how this impacts our body's ability to take care of itself. How do you think that impacts us on our healing journey and our ability to heal from these sorts of illnesses, having these personality traits, characteristics?
Well, I think we kind of started to touch on it a little bit already, but I think it's that sense of almost applying all of those patterns or tendencies just to the healing process in itself, and certainly for me at the beginning and for a long time, to be honest, it was that immediate sense of like, right, I must fight this, I must fix it, that real determination, like I'm gonna, blow this thing to pieces. And that real kind of that kind of mobilization to deal with it. And I think what a lot of that can do is turning, as we talked about a little bit, that kind of healing work or exploration into a real chore, in the sense that like I must constantly be doing like more of this, like more time, more repetitions, like exploring more things, working harder, all underpinned by that sense of kind of like seeking that perfect outcome every time, or perfection, or achieving kind of through the healing process itself. And as you kind of just talked about, I think all of that, when you think about all of that, is kind of all mobilization. It's all kind of a fight or flight kind of energy at the heart of it. And actually, if we're looking to kind of come to a much more regulated place, which is ultimately a lot what most of us are kind of looking to do, all of those kind of behaviors and that kind of being harsh on ourselves is not helping us move towards that, even if it is what kind of comes most naturally to us, I suppose. So in a kind of roundabout way, that's how I ended up kind of going through all of those kind of patterns and behaviors in myself, and then kind of eventually got to this kind of concept, I suppose, of self-compassion as a softener to those things, in a way that I haven't found in a lot of other things.
These are messages that I wish I would have been getting right at the start from when I got sick. I eventually found a really good doctor, integrative medicine doctor, and he was amazing. Not really able to, cure me, but I remember I'm still grateful for him. He was such a support. But in the beginning, he said, it's probably a lot of your type A personality that got you here, got you sick. But he's like, but the good news is that same personality is probably what's going to get you out of this. So I really clung to it. I'm like, yes, this like, drive, push, 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 push. Like, this is what's going to save me. So that was the messaging that I got early on. And, like a lot of us just went into full blown, stressed out, trying to heal mode for a long time. And, not surprising now, it wasn't super successful.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously huge value in it too, in that it's often at the center of what makes so many of us so resilient, and that ability, as you have to keep kind of getting up and going again, and having that kind of sense of action and empowerment. But there's definitely a flip side to it, realizing that it's got to be in the right doses, and that the self-compassion has to kind of sit at the heart of it, I think.
So what does that mean? Because self-compassion, I think, sounds to a lot of us like a nice to have, or a gift we'll give ourselves, once we've earned it, or, on our day off. So what makes it so important?
Well, I think we kind of touched on what does it look like if you're not self-compassionate, and I think it's a lot of those patterns that sometimes keep us and our nervous system stuck. But I also, when we also kind of as humans have this kind of soothing and caregiving system, and I think a lot of us are like brilliant at embodying that around other people. If you speak to someone, they're great normally at being really like kind and caring for their family and their friends and their animals, and they like give all of that externally. We forget that we have that ability to turn it inwards as well, and to give it to ourselves. And when we're in that space, you'll know that feeling of when you're really like connecting with someone, or being kind to someone, or caring for someone. Like, you can feel it in your whole kind of body and your physiology, and that is changing as you do that. It's relaxing, it's coming into a regulation space, or you're kind of co-regulating with someone else. It is often considered a nice, kind of a fluffy nice to have, and I certainly would have seen it that way, not that long ago, to be honest, a couple of years ago probably. But there is actually kind of science behind it as well, I think, and it can be really powerful to release that pressure and expectation that we put on ourselves constantly in everyday life. And society often kind of adds another little dose of that on top of it as well. So I think it's hugely powerful at the same time as being something, yes, that is kind of a little bit harder to grasp in some instances than other kind of resources, but just as powerful in my eyes anyway.
Like a lot of things, it's not something you get and then you're just good. Like, I think about when I finally did recover, I had a lot more self-compassion for myself, but then I was healthy again, and it kind of felt like I moved that back to being like a fluffy nice to have. And I realized, I'm so glad that I do these interviews and talk to people like yourself, because it teaches me so much and reminds me of things. And I realized that for a really long time, self-compassion has been gone. So I've started in the mornings when my alarm goes off, because usually I kind of hit the ground running, and I have very long days and busy days and a lot on the go, and I'm driving myself really hard in about 20 different areas of my life. But now my alarm goes off, and it's like my self-compassion trigger. And this probably sounds really cheesy, but I lay there and I'm nice to myself, I think.
Mm.
Like, you're doing so well. You know, you've got this day ahead of you and you're not going to do any of it perfectly. And that is completely fine. And
Mm.
I even sometimes laying in bed, just like give myself a hug. But I feel it
Yeah.
changing my whole physiology. I just feel myself exhaling and like a smile coming on my face and just my whole body start to calm instead of starting the day like, okay, like white knuckling it. We got so much to do. So it's been a game changer for me. And I find I have more energy and my energy is more stable. It's just, I really haven't been appreciating. I've been chalking up so much of lately. I've just been run down and I chalk it up to, well, I'm working a lot. But so much of it is actually just the stress. It wipes me out worse than anything else. And bringing in that
Mm.
self-compassion for me is a game changer. So I'm so grateful that people like yourself and, so many others out there are talking about this because really it's not something that's talked about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I often talk about it kind of like it feels like a bit of a missing piece in a lot of situations is, you kind of explore and apply yourself to lots of different tools and techniques, but kind of sometimes we just forget to be nice to ourselves. It sounds
Yeah.
really simple, but it is, as you say, it does have a really powerful effect. And I think because it doesn't come that naturally to many of us.
And I think it could feel sometimes like this, we can't let up on ourselves because then we're never gonna, we have to keep like cracking the whip and keeping us going, thinking that that's what's getting us where we're trying to go, but it's not helping us at all. It's,
No, and I have that, I sometimes when I speak to someone else and someone says to you, like it's all right, it's okay to be where you are and be feeling what you're feeling, and I'm like, oh, like it's like such a relief, and I guess it's tuning in to recognize how you can, or how we can start giving that to ourselves and embody that feeling, not just from other people giving it to us, but to be able to develop it internally as well.
what are some examples? Like, what does this really mean with your own life, professionally working with other people? What does this look like for people to be more self-compassionate with themselves? What can they do?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of really, luckily, lots of really simple things, and like you said, it's a kind of a daily practice for me to remind myself to kind of tune into them. One thing I really like to do and encourage people to do is actually another morning practice, like you describe. It's just two questions to ask yourself each morning. One of which is, what do I need today, or like what does my body need today, and getting away from there any sense of like what I should be doing or I must be doing, and just like actually what do I need, and then the second question being, how can I meet that need, in any small way? And for me, that's a nice way to begin the day, like reconnecting with actually how I'm feeling and what my needs are, and realize that I can kind of be compassionate and give a flavor of that to myself in that day. So that's something I think it's a really nice, simple way to kind of ease your way into kind of the self-compassion if it's something you don't kind of practice or familiar with. Also building in like kind of almost designated time for like self-care, or to, do something for yourself. Certainly I find when I've almost set it out, I am able to give myself more permission and be more free to actually relax into that time. So whether that's an hour I set out in the day to relax or do some yoga nidra or whatever it might be, it's like it's there, it's protected, and I can actually just really kind of lean into it rather than the feeling like I should be doing something else or being more productive. It's almost a ritual to give that kind of compassion to yourself. And then I suppose, as you've talked about in your personal life, I think anything that kind of connects you in a more compassionate way with your body, most of us have got here to begin with because of that disconnect. So whether that's like, I love taking a bath, for example, that's like a ritual that I really enjoy, or whether, as you say, it's like self massage, or whether it's like a weighted blanket, or whatever it might be for what works for you, but something that kind of reconnects you with your body, and that kind of sense of care for it, I think is useful as well.
I think, one that jumps to mind too is because so many of us are people who drive ourselves so hard, is that, one YouTuber that I follow, I talk about him a lot. His name's Ali Abdal, and he's massively successful. He's got millions of subscribers. He's makes millions of dollars a year. He's got all these different things on the go. And he was saying how he realized he was finishing every single day feeling like he hadn't done enough. Like he had this idea for the day and he never met it. And, despite being insanely successful, he was stressed at the end of every day thinking, oh, I didn't get enough done. So I think a lot of for us, I like the idea of starting the day with something, having things to get you through the day, and then ending the day with just every day, just telling yourself it was enough. I did
Yeah.
enough. So these small things can go a long way. Because I realize the same in myself every day. I'm like, I'm finishing every day stressed and unhappy with myself. And this is no way to live.
Yeah, and it's the same, I think, with healing in itself. There's often, that sense of
Yeah.
I should have done more today, or I should have done more practices, or I should have done, more rounds of this or that,
Yeah.
or social media as well. You log into Instagram, and it's like, oh no, this person's done, all of this today, or shouldn't I be trying this? And
Yeah.
it can quite quickly, you might have done an amazing job, in the day of kind of investing in yourself, and you might still feel like you've not, done enough.
So I know you have an online course right now called Nervous System Reboot, which I think is incredible. We need resources out there for people because there's so many people out there, that are still really sick and really struggling. So can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Yeah, of course. So, kind of as it says on the tin, it's at the heart, it's about kind of accessing mind body resources that will help kind of regulate your nervous system. So, we kind of weave through quite a kind of holistic approach to that. So, there's everything in there from kind of polyvagal theory and understanding your kind of unique nervous system. We go into kind of a bit of inner child work and trauma awareness. There's brain retraining in there. There's breath work, there's kind of somatic movement and qigong, which I've kind of talked about. So lots of different tools and resources, but I guess what I've really tried to create with it is coming at all of that kind of work, but with that kind of lens of self-compassion and kindness and ease at the kind of heart of it. So that sense that there's still plenty of space to kind of honor your needs, honor your pace and your reality, to kind of be seen and kind of understood along the way, and to know that there's kind of no right or wrong way to do this, and that kind of everything within it is, I guess, like an invitation. There'll be parts of it that will feel, exactly the right time, and parts that you can come back to, and all kind of broken up nice and small. So I hope it's kind of really got that feeling of self-compassion at the heart of it as well. So yeah, it's been really exciting, and I've decided now to keep it as a self-study course so that people can take it kind of fully at their own pace and kind of honor their needs. And yeah, I'm doing some other live classes and bits to support people alongside it. But yeah, it was a good journey and a good learning to actually build it, and it's been lovely to kind of have it out there in the world and to kind of feel like purposeful with it, I suppose.
Amazing. And all of this, of course, will be linked in the video description. And you have provided a discount for people who use the link here. It's not an affiliate link. We just want to make this more accessible for people. So for those of you watching, I really encourage you to expand the video description. Just take a look. James is an incredible person. He has so much insight into healing and obviously a compassionate approach. So, what have you got to lose to at least give it a look and see if it seems like something that might be a good fit for you. All right. Well, thank you so much, James. As just like with the last interview, this is so enlightening. I learned so much from you, and I'm so grateful for everything that you're doing and so appreciative of your time today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me back on. And yeah, thanks as well for what you do and putting these out there in the world, and yeah, providing kind of, I guess, yeah, hope and inspiration to a lot of people and kind of resonance as well. So thank you.
I love doing it so much. To those of you watching, as always, sending big hugs to you. Whatever you're facing, keep going, keep at it. Don't give up. I know it can be tough, but I believe your answers are out there and you will get there, and you've totally got this. So I'm sending big hugs to you. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope to see you in the next video.